Good evening. It's just gone 7 p.m. on Wednesday night, the 6th of January 2021. My name's Toby Lapati Mesme, and this is tonight's edition of MesmePolitics, bringing you all the latest in UK and US politics from a unique leftist perspective. Get in touch in the chat at any point over the next half hour and welcome along. Big day. Top of the show, the confirmation of the Electoral College results and all the challenges are currently ongoing. We'll be reporting on that in full tomorrow. It looks like it may stretch into the night. Mike Pence has released a letter basically saying he'll follow the procedures to the book, therefore scuppering his future presidential aspirations, because that will have lost him Trump's support. But yeah, it's ongoing. We'll talk more about it tomorrow. It is on a big screen right next to me right now. I'm looking at it. Senator Pat Toomey of Pennsylvania is currently speaking, but we're not reporting on that on tonight's show because there simply isn't enough information yet. Now, onto today's top story. Democrats have taken control of the Senate, or they're about to. They're about to flip the Senate. Against all odds, against my prediction yesterday, Democrats appear to have won the Georgia Senate races. A phenomenal, groundbreaking achievement. Also coming up on the show in a little bit, I want to talk about Boris Johnson's statement to the House of Commons and why we're in desperate need of a government reshuffle. And our dire COVID numbers. Just how bad is it, and just how bad will it get? And what should we do about it? Subscribe to this YouTube channel, let your friends know about this show, share it around. Join us every night. We're with you all the way through lockdown, 7 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time. Okay. Straight into the main story. The don't know what that was. Should I have that again? I mean, we need that suspense, don't we? I think that suspense is fitting. The Reverend Raphael Warnock has won his challenge to Senator Kelly Loeffler in Georgia, becoming the first black senator-elect in the state's history and possibly helping the Democrats seize control of the Senate as Joe Biden enters the presidency. The fate of the chamber remains up in the air, as no official winner has yet been called in Georgia's other Senate runoff elections between David Perdue and his Democratic challenger Jon Ossoff. It now looks overwhelmingly likely that Jon Ossoff will prevail, save an act of God. But with most voters casting consistent ballots for two candidates, as we say, Ossoff appears to have a good chance of joining Warnock in the winner's circle once all votes are counted. Even once a winner is declared in the Perdue-Ossoff race, the story may not be completely finished. If their contest ends up being decided by less than half a percentage point, Georgia law dictates that the trailing candidate will be permitted to request a recount. The story of Georgia's runoffs turned largely on the participation of black voters, who made up a higher percentage of the electorate than they did in November's general election. 1.2 million votes were cast on election day. And Perdue ran ahead of Loeffler by tens of thousands of votes, reflecting his slightly higher favourability rating, but in the end, both candidates appeared on track to finish well behind the only other Republican on the ballot for statewide office, Georgia's Public Service Commissioner, Lauren McDonald Jr., known as Bubba, who was re-elected yesterday. So, and of course at the same time, Vice President Mike Pence has broken the news to Trump last night that he would not be able to deliver him a second term as president when Congress convenes today. That's what people briefed at the conversation said. Now, this is huge. The win for Raphael Warnock is hugely symbolic. The symbolism of it goes very far, right? This is, the remnants of the Jim Crow South being swept away, voter fraud being fought against, voter suppression, being fought against, decades-long voter suppression, peddled by the Republicans, and we have elected, in the midst of a flurry of racially motivated attacks on Raphael Warnock, a black pastor has prevailed in this race and removed David Perdue from, Kelly Loeffler from office. That's huge. That's a repudiation of the Trumpist style Loeffler embraced, and it is an endorsement in Georgia, in the South, of a progressive coalition, multi-ethnic, multicultural, forward-thinking direction for America. Let's hear what Raphael Warnock had to say as he declared victory.
So I come before you tonight as a man who knows that the improbable journey that led me to this place in this historic moment in America could only happen here. We were told that we couldn't win this election. But tonight, we prove that with hope, hard work, and the people by our side, anything is possible. Washington has a choice to make. In fact, all of us have a choice to make. Will we continue to divide, distract, and dishonor one another? Or will we love our neighbors as we love ourselves? Will we play political games while real people suffer? Or will we win righteous fights together, standing shoulder to shoulder, for the good of Georgia, for the good of our country? And so to everyone out there struggling today, whether you voted for me or not, know this: I hear you, I see you, and every day I'm in the United States Senate, I will fight for you. From where I'm sitting right now, we are tied in a single garment of destiny. We are caught up in an inescapable network of mutuality. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly.
Raphael Warnock there. An excellent victory speech. We'll have a very quick listen in to what Jon Ossoff has to say.
Following in the footsteps of leaders who have departed us in this last year, like Congressman John Lewis and C.T. Vivian. I want to thank the people of Georgia for participating in this election. Everybody who cast your ballot, everybody who put your faith and confidence in our democracy's capacity to deliver the representation that we deserve, whether you were for me or against me, I'll be for you in the U.S. Senate. I will serve all the people of the state. I will give everything I've got to ensuring that Georgia's interests are represented in the U.S. Senate. I want to thank all the volunteers who poured their hearts and souls into this campaign. I want to thank my family for their support and their patience. I want to thank my wonderful wife, Alicia, who as we speak is at the hospital, helping Georgia mothers deliver healthy babies, helping save lives. Let's emulate the spirit of courage and heroism of those who have given so much to the health response to this crisis, as we unite as a people to overcome this challenge of COVID-19 and to build a republic that lives up to our highest ideals of equality in God's eyes and equal justice under the law. Georgia, thank you so much for the confidence that you've placed in me. I am honored by your support, by your confidence, by your trust, and I will look forward to serving you in the United States Senate.
There you go. That's Jon Ossoff there, vaguely preemptively declaring victory because it is, almost inconceivable. In order for David Perdue to prevail, we'd have to see either slightly Democratic or heavily Democratic areas plump, landslide results for a radical right Republican. That's not going to happen. Therefore, they've won. This is a big shift. It's a big change in American politics. I mean, boy, was I wrong. And happy to be so, by the way. My prediction was that the Republicans had probably a 70% chance of prevailing. Well, it was close. I was right on that. It looks like I was right on them both going to the same party. Not exactly a bit of a no-brainer, that prediction. But, I mean, boy, was I wrong on this. It's gone the exact opposite way to the way I thought it would, and I'm incredibly happy it has, because it looks like we're going to have a Democratic Senate, we're going to have a unified government at the end of January. They beat the odds, these people in Georgia, Democrats in Georgia. Stacey Abrams and all those heroes who for years have been fighting against the forces that have tried to hold back people of colour in the South voting. Those same attitudes that can be traced all the way back to the Jim Crow era. These people who've been organising to flip the South blue have revealed today the start of something beautiful, which is a multi-ethnic, multicultural, multi-faith, diverse, progressive, multi-generational coalition of forward-thinking Americans that can begin, through their sheer number, to overwhelm the white lash strategy and the hegemony of a minority of white rural voices in the American political system. This is the first step in counting voter suppression. I hope it will encourage more organisers to get out, to fight for this. I cannot express how much we all owe a great debt of gratitude to people like Stacey Abrams and all those people on the ground who have been organising in the South for years to bring this about. Joe Biden owes these people. The Democrats, Chuck Schumer, owes these people. Going to be majority leader of the Senate, Chuck Schumer, which was a prospect that looked all but imperiled mere months ago. The Democrats now have no excuses. Okay, there is no hiding behind things. They've got to get the stuff they say they want done. They've got a united government for 2 years. It will slip away after those 2 years if they don't deliver for their people. We need to see a green infrastructure package. We need to see a comprehensive $3 trillion people's COVID bailout that serves American citizens and small businesses, not special interests and large corporations. We need to see reform of the courts, depoliticisation of the courts, pack the courts. We need to see the removal of the filibuster. And we need to see a serious look at ethical reform and also a look at the way we run elections, things like the Electoral College, all these things. Only a fraction of these things will get through, or more than a fraction this time, but, a quarter, half. It's a narrow majority in the Senate, very narrow, and there's some Democrats that won't play ball. What has to be done is basically throw everything at the kitchen sink and get some stuff over the line. No compromise. We're going to get some stuff done. And that does include looking at all these things, looking at the courts, looking at ethics rules, looking at checks and balances, looking at representation, looking at the Electoral College, all these things that will be fought by vested interests but must be done. Do Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer have the courage to do this? That's what they need to look in the mirror and ask. This is the strategy Democrats need to lean into, not wealthy, white, moderate voters, that half of which plumped for the Republicans in this election. We need to focus on a progressive majority coalition that can overwhelm the forces of suppression, but only if we keep our promises and deliver for the people that are making this coalition possible. Those black voters that turned out in Georgia, will they turn out again if they are not? What they were promised is not delivered? No, they won't. Democrats need to deliver. They need to realise toxic bargains and compromise is going to hand Republicans political hegemony in the United States for another decade, as happened after 2011, essentially, because the Republicans held the power during the second half of the Obama era. If we're being realistic, Mitch McConnell called the shots, and it is a very sweet day that we've seen Mitch McConnell de facto defeated here. He is being ousted as majority leader of the Senate, which is exactly the repudiation we need. This was a repudiation, more than anything else, of the strategy, the Trumpist strategy. It won't stop it, but it has shown you can cut through the noise, you can cut through the slander, you can turn out that majority progressive, multiracial, multi-faith, diverse coalition, that progressive coalition of young people, black voters, progressive liberals, and you can win. You can win. That block of minority voters, of white liberals, of young people, you can win with that. But you have to get these people turned out, and they will not turn out if you don't keep your promises. That is the lesson we have to keep hitting people with. It's a repudiation, it's a victory for a progressive organising strategy, not a moderate, wealthy white voter strategy, a progressive, diverse strategy. And Democrats need to be wedded to that progressive coalition as opposed to a wavering white wealthy coalition that will not turn out for them once Trump is gone. And that was already wavering in this election, because tell you what, if you want to take on special interests, get the people, which is this coalition behind you, not wealthy people that are a bit worried because Trump's a little bit too vulgar for them, but they don't care one jot about abortion rights or about economic justice or systemic racism. There's a coalition to be built that does care about these things, and that will incentivise you to deliver for these people. So as progressives, we should all lean into that. Absolutely. 100%. This is excellent, it's wonderful, it's brilliant. Now, over to the UK, and Boris Johnson. So Boris Johnson has promised MPs that schools will be the first to reopen when lockdown is lifted, but stressed that he would be, quote, extremely cautious about when that would happen. The Commons has been recalled to discuss the regulations needed to reimpose the England-wide lockdown announced by the Prime Minister on Monday. Addressing MPs on Wednesday, which is today, Johnson defended his last-minute decision to close schools after pupils in many parts of the country returned for a mere day, saying he had been battling to keep schools open. He also sounded a warning to businesses in sectors such as hospitality, keen to know when they can reopen, saying the new regulations do not expire until the end of March, because unwinding the lockdown would be a gradual process. Let's have a sample of Boris Johnson.
60,000 laptops and tablets provided last year, with over 50,000 delivered to schools on Monday and more than 100,000 being delivered in total during the first week of term. We have partnered with some of the UK's leading mobile operators to provide free mobile data to disadvantaged families to support access to education resources. And I'm very grateful to EE, 3, Tesco Mobile, Smarty, Sky Mobile, Virgin Mobile and Vodafone for supporting this offer. Oak National Academy will continue to provide video lessons, and it's very good news that the BBC is launching the biggest education programme in its history, with both primary and secondary school programmes across its platforms. We recognise it will not be possible or fair for all exams to go ahead this summer as normal, and the Education Secretary will be making a statement shortly.
And a little sample of what the Leader of the Opposition, Keir Starmer, had to say.
Let me turn to financial support. Yesterday's announcement will help, but the British Chamber of Commerce and others have already warned it's not enough. There are big gaps and big questions. First, why is there still nothing to help the 3 million self-employed who've been excluded from the very start? That was unfair in March of last year. It was even more unfair in the autumn. It's totally unforgivable now. It may well be a whole year that group have gone without any meaningful support. That gap needs to be plugged. Secondly, will the Prime Minister drop his plan to cut universal credit by £20 a week? That needs to be done now, and we will support it. Will he immediately extend the eviction ban? That's due to run out just in 5 days' time now, just as we're going into this new phase. Third, will he address the obvious issues with financial support for those required to isolate, including statutory sick pay and support for local councils?
Now that is more like it. More of that, please. The debate happened in the Commons. There was no PMQs today. It was just a special sitting of Parliament. The government appeared to be learning a little. Johnson has softened his tone, acted like less of a buffoon, but at the same time, and this does not mean they're going to succeed or do much better, but the government have learnt And I said this the other day, they've learned to paper over the cracks, deal with, neutralise the free school meals issue, which is a huge win, and all credit goes to Marcus Rashford there. And virtually no credit goes to Keir Starmer there. They're papering over lots of different areas in order to not upset their coalition. And if they do piss people off, they're people that probably won't vote for them anyway, i.e. renters. It is a cold, cruel, divide and rule strategy, but it does mean they're going to get through this, possibly without scathing themselves too much. We need tougher opposition, more of Keir Starmer there, bold, clear, calling for very specific alterations. Not just we'll support this, and oh, we're not sure about this. I want to hear real, concrete, bolder solutions from the Labour front bench. The government needs a reshuffle now. A technicolor coalition government of all parties would not work, because it would mean there'd be no robust scrutiny, or virtually no scrutiny, of the executive. So what I suggest is Johnson cherry picks the best and the brightest from the Tory backbenchers and puts together essentially a smoothly run Tory war cabinet. Basically, that's not ideal, but it's the best we can hope for. And while reshuffles in such a situation are not generally what you want, a situation like this, the country's future may well depend on getting some half-competent, half-experienced people into the chair and around the cabinet table. An observation about Keir Starmer in the last few days. He looks good, right? What he says sounds good. That's why he's made a decent impression with the public. A very good impression initially, an excellent impression. But he's not doing his job. He's not robustly holding the government to account consistently and to the standards one would expect from the leader of the opposition in such a crisis, which is the problem, of course. Let's not rush in terms of Johnson's targets to get out of lockdown. Let's not rush. Let's take the time we need. Let's only lift these measures when we're sure it's not going to put us in a worse position. That is what we are going to have to do. We're in for the long haul. It may resurge next winter or the winter after that. We have to be grown-ups about this and level with people. Looking at the polling data over the last few days, both major parties appear to be in the bin, basically. Starmer's ratings are dreadful, Johnson's ratings are dreadful, the government's ratings are dreadful, Rishi Sunak's ratings are above water. So Rishi Sunak is trusted overwhelmingly, compared to any of the others, to deal with COVID-19, whereas Johnson and Starmer are both equally mistrusted to deal with COVID-19, which is very ironic considering Sunak is essentially the one who's had the worst positions behind the scenes on lockdowns, on economic support, and indeed on a strategy. He's practically one of the nutcase herd immunity people. But we are where we are. Final story of the day, and it's not a fun story. I'm going to be honest with you. The UK death toll has risen. For the first time, the government has announced more than 1,000 COVID deaths in its daily report on the virus and revealed another record rise in cases. It said a further 1,041 people had died within 28 days of testing positive for COVID-19 as of Wednesday. It brings the UK's death toll to 77,300. Another 62,300 new cases were also reported, surpassing Tuesday's record after more than a week, with more than 50,000 cases were announced every day. Retrospective analysis of dates and deaths from COVID showed there were several days in April when more than 1,000 were recorded, but this is the first time that more than 1,000 coronavirus deaths have been announced in the daily figures. The worst day of the pandemic was on the 8th of April, when a record 1,445 people died from COVID. But the 8th of April itself, 938 deaths were actually announced in the daily figures. We are once again the worst hit country in Europe. Italy, which for the last few weeks had recorded more COVID deaths, is now more than 1,000 deaths fewer than the UK, according to a tally run by the Johns Hopkins University. Their new infection rate is around 10,000. Ours is around 50,000. Graham Medley, member of the government scientific advisory group for emergencies, said it is almost inevitable that we will reach 100,000 deaths, and there is a chance that this will happen before the end of January if transmission continues. There have been now 93,000 deaths involving COVID-19 in the UK, and here's a report from Sky News on the latest figures.
Breaking news now. The latest daily statistics for COVID-19 in the UK have been released. 62,322 new confirmed cases of coronavirus have been recorded in the UK in the past 24 hours. That is up from 60,916 yesterday. 1,041 further deaths within 28 days of a positive coronavirus test have been recorded, and that is up from 830 yesterday. Let's bring in Sky's Ashna Huranag, who is in the newsroom. We heard from the government's chief scientist, chief medical officer, chief scientific advisor yesterday, both warning us that the figures were going to get worse, and they certainly have done, Ashna.
They really have. I think what's really concerning is that these figures are showing no signs of slowing down. In the last 2 weeks of December, the cases of COVID-19 rose by 70%. And the headline figure that's come from today's announcement and drop of data is that this is the highest number of deaths that we have seen since the 21st of April.
It's, this is dire. There's saying we're in dire straits, which I've said a few times over the course of this, does not go far enough. It is utterly tragic, the sheer number of deaths, the stress, the pressure that our healthcare officials are under, the economic devastation people are facing. This is a tragedy. It never had to be this way. I will never stop saying that. It never had to get this bad. The government have presided over the most disastrous, corrupt, hand-wringingly, mind-numbingly stupid handling of the pandemic in the world. Arguably one of the worst in the world, up there with Brazil and the States. And we're a much more centralised, much more, we pride ourselves on much more administrative competence. That's out the window. A hollowed out health service, thanks to successive Tory governments, a cabinet wedded to ideology over practicality, and a compliant media and opposition that failed to hold them to account. Everyone will be damned in the history books for where we are today. Blame the powerful, not the powerless. Don't blame people who are in horrific financial situations, are worried about how they're going to educate your kids, their kids, or your kids. Blame people who are in high positions of power, who've profited from this, who have failed to flatten the curve because they decided to line their own pockets. This is where we are. It's going to worsen. It's going to get worse. We all need to steel ourselves for the psychological effect of that. Make sure you're okay. Check in with yourself. Check in with your loved ones. This is hideous. Where we are about to be is absolutely hideous. And that is with extra help. These deaths would be far worse if this was March 2020. We've got more therapeutics, we've got easier ways of saving people's lives, and we're still hitting that 1,000 death target, which, more than anything else, is the biggest repudiation of the whole thing. If you've enjoyed what you heard today, if you think our journalism is the sort of thing you want to get involved with more, please subscribe to this YouTube channel, tell your friends about it, and listen every single day at 7 PM Greenwich Mean Time. Subscribe with notifications on. My name is Toby Lepati Mesme, and this is MesmePolitics. If you want to read my daily pieces on Medium, please subscribe to me. I am at Toby Joshua Politics. Or indeed on Twitter, if you want my latest hot takes, it's at TobyJoshuaUK, where I'll be raging at the political establishment through the day. And feel free to share your thoughts at any point with me in the chat, or indeed, if it's not during the time we're on air, drop me an email, tobyjoshua2004@gmail.com. We're going to be here for you right through lockdown. That is our goal. As a programme. We know this is going to be difficult. If you have any stories you want us to try to give a platform for, or even help you with, please get in touch with that in the email, tobyjoshua2004@gmail.com, or DM me on Twitter, because we of course do whatever we can to help. expose whatever wrongdoing has been going on. And as I say, we know it'll be tough, but we will be here as company, and there's going to be good news and bad news. It's not all going to be grim death figures. We will have a laugh, we will take the piss, and we will have good news stories. Always. And just to make you smile at the end of this, just remember that the Republican advertising, the disgusting Republican advertising, made John Ossoff, a Jewish candidate's nose, look bigger, and made Raphael Warnock, a black candidate's skin, look darker. That was the Republicans', campaigning tactic. It defies belief that that's going on in 2021, but that's where we are. And in the South, okay, in Georgia, fighting against these bigots, we've elected a Jewish senator and a black senator against these people. Okay, that's some poetic justice. End your day with that. That'll make you smile. And they're both committed to the full decriminalisation of marijuana.